Well, let's talk about the polling data and how it's changing. So, Marjorie, you're just mentioning it's not about science, it's about polling.
Right.
Now we're seeing, New York, Illinois, you mentioned New Jersey, they're starting to pull back on their mandates. We have this story from Timcast.com. President Biden's approval rating falls below 40% according to new poll. The rate marks an all-time average low for Biden at 39.8 in the Real Clear Politics average. That is, I believe, like two or 3 points lower than where Donald Trump was at the same time in his presidency. I think it's fair to say the Democrats have gotten the message. When you look at Civics data, it's a website, Civics, spelled with a Q. You can see that on economics, on COVID, on the direction of government, independent voters and Republicans are very much in alignment. Republicans absolutely think the economy is trash. Independent voters think the economy is very, very bad. Democrat voters think the economy is good. Somehow, I don't know why. They must be watching too much CNN.
Yes.
But that tracks true for almost every issue.
Wow. Black
Lives Matter support, the COVID response. Democrats think Joe Biden did a great job. Independent voters and Republicans are kind of like, well, Republicans are like, it's miserable. Independent voters are like, it's pretty bad. Mm-hmm. So it's weird that we have Democrats, the voter base, believing something that most Americans, or at least independent voters and Republicans, don't. I think obviously it's media, but I think the media narrative is breaking. That's why Democrats are going down in the polls. So it's not even just the polls. It's that they've lost control of the narrative, which results in the polls tanking, which results in them saying whatever they got to say to try and win, especially this year.
I totally agree. Well, you can't lie to people over and over when they see something different in their everyday life. When they're going to the gas pump and gas is up to almost $4 a gallon. When they're going to the grocery store and the store shelves are empty and food prices have gone up. And then when they're taking their kids to school and their children are healthy and their children are just fine after 2 years of COVID-19, but yet they're still being forced to wear masks. And then there's children, suffering like with speech therapy and different type of, special needs kids. These masks are terrible for them. And so, yeah, it is a real issue. And you can't lie to people over and over again on the news and when they see something different in their everyday life.
Stacey Abrams, Alyssa Slotkin. Stacey Abrams sitting down with all these kids wearing masks and she's not doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically telling you they don't care.
They don't care.
Let me say something about Stacey Abrams because she's running for governor in my state. Yes. That picture was infuriating to me. I'm a mom. I've got 3 kids. Now my kids are older, but Stacey Abrams, she is in one of the highest risk factors for COVID-19. Yep. She's obese. She is. She's obese. I'm not trying to say anything terrible about anyone, but that is the state of her health. She's sitting on the floor without a mask in front of all these children who are not at high risk of COVID-19. Those are the facts. That's on the CDC. That is the data. That science has not changed. She sits there without a mask. I mean, it was infuriating to me. There's no way parents in Georgia to want that woman to be the governor of our state when that's how she views children, that she is better than them and that they have to sit there with a mask on while she gets to take hers off.
Why did she do it? Do you guys know? What was the purpose of that photo? It was really, really bad looking for her.
It's not the first time we've seen a Democrat who advocates for masks not wear one. A picture recently of Obama. We saw Nancy Pelosi getting her hair done. We saw Whitmer, the same thing. Mm-hmm. I think they're just liars. They're lying about how they really feel about masks. And if they don't, do you see that video of Rashida Tlaib saying she's on camera saying something like, "I only wear this when the Republicans are around or they're filming me or something." It's the weirdest
thing. Well, we
can
can talk about masks. I'm going to let Thomas start.
Yeah. In the House of Representatives, there's a rule that you have to wear a mask. But guess what? It only applies when you're in front of cameras.
Huh.
What?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Either the only place they enforce the rule is in a committee where there are cameras or on the floor of the House.
Oh my God. Not in the hallways
and
or
when
you
go
walk
in the
out.
hallways,
you'll
see Democrats take their masks off. It's been that way for over a year.
It's been there ever since it's been that way the whole time for me.
Only if there's cameras.
Now
is that hold on?
But I don't wear mine.
Is that codified in the rules, like it says in the presence of cameras, or
no? It doesn't say in the presence of cameras.
Functionally, they just don't enforce it unless cameras are around.
They functionally do not enforce it anywhere but on the floor or in a committee where there are cameras.
Where I have over $100,000 in mask fines, and my good friend Thomas Massie and I have something fun going on. I'm going to let you tell.
So one day Pelosi goes out. The media says, "When are you going to lift the masks fines or the masks rule in the House?" Because remember, there was a period of time where if you'd been vaccinated, you could take your mask off.
Right.
And most of Congress had been vaccinated. So they asked Pelosi, and she said, until every member of Congress is vaccinated, everybody's going to wear a mask. And I realized, okay, the mask rule is now morphing into a vaccine rule.
Yep.
And so I organized, I don't want to say I led, but I organized 10 members of Congress, and Marjorie was among them, to go to the floor of the House and notoriously and openly violate this mask rule in front of the C-SPAN cameras. And we were promptly fined for our transgressions. And if she had just sent the bill to Georgia for Marjorie's case, or to Kentucky in my case, she would have been fine. We would have thrown them in the trash and she wouldn't have got her money. But what she did is she reduced our salaries.
That's right.
Whoa.
Takes it off on the front end.
How does she do that?
Well, she violates the Constitution to do it because the Constitution says that the salaries are set by law and drawn from the Treasury. To be set by law, a law has to pass the Senate and be signed by the President. The 27th Amendment to the Constitution, the very last one to be ratified in 1992, but suggested during the Bill of Rights, says that congressional salaries can't vary without an intervening election. Now, why did they do that? A lot of people think it was so we wouldn't give ourselves a raise. That could be partly true, but in reality, if you go back and look at the debates, they decided if anybody could get control of a person's sustenance of their salary, they could bend their will pretty easily. And so they made sure that you couldn't vary it until there was an election.
Almost
so
you're rich.
Yeah, but even that, I mean, Marjorie's got $100,000 of fines.
Oh, the next thing they did, because they figured out they can't stop me from refusing to wear a mask, because they figured out I truly will not stop doing it no matter how much they fine me. And we are going to have a very successful lawsuit. I'm thrilled about it. He's explained it perfectly. So they sent a letter. A letter was sent to Sergeant at Arms saying that they should put anyone without a mask up into the COVID box. And no one really, the public doesn't know about the COVID box because it's not in view of the C-SPAN cameras. The COVID box, Nancy Pelosi had it built right before the vote for Speaker of the House in January of 2021. It is a plexiglass box up in the corner of the House chamber. Now, the plexiglass doesn't go all the way to the ceiling, and it's supposed to be the original design was for any House member to go there if they were sick or having symptoms of COVID-19. It wasn't for well people, unvaccinated people, or people without mask. It was only for sick people. But then Catherine Clark, who called
Representative Catherine Clark.
Representative Catherine Clark, sent a letter to the Sergeant at Arms because they're so offended at me or Thomas or anyone not wearing a mask, and they want to put us up in the COVID box.
In the penalty box?
Yes.
I was like,
Well,
I
body
check you up into the penalty box?
This is beyond. When I think about how bad Congress is, you know, the first time you came, Marjorie, and explained how they don't even really vote on the bills. They just like aye, nay, and then just like done. It sounds like Congress isn't a real thing. It's like a theater to make Americans think there's something actually being done about our problems.
Speaking of theater, do you remember the title of this person who wants us in the box now?
Yes. Oh, yes. What was her title?
Assistant Speaker.
Assistant Speaker of the House.
We think that her real title is Assistant to the Speaker.
Right.
And then she just marked out.
That's a joke from The Office by Dwight Schrute.
Yes, it is. Yes, Ian, that's right.
The Dwight reference.
I think it's funny that we're all sitting here laughing, and it sounds like the institution is just completely in decay and falling apart.
Oh, it
It's
gets
scary,
worse.
right?
We can tell you more.
Well, I was the guy that everybody hated. By the way, I was the most hated person in Washington, D.C. Now I'm just the most hated man now that Marjorie is there. But before Marjorie got there in 2020, March 27th, 2020, 10th day of flattening the curve, Congress decided to spend $2 trillion with nobody there and taking no vote.
This is my favorite story, Thomas Massie story. One of my favorites.
I got in the car and drove to Washington, D.C. and objected. And I said, the Constitution requires a quorum to be here in order to pass this bill. And they hated me. Nancy Pelosi called me a dangerous nuisance.
Tell them what a quorum is.
A quorum would be at least half of Congress needs to show up to pass.
Which is how many people?
218.
How many were there?
Well, they were going to do it with one in the speaker's chair and one on the floor. They were going to do it with two people.
That's like it. So remember I was telling you they'll pass bills with only a couple people in there saying yes or no? That is exactly what he's talking about. They were going to spend how much money?
$2 trillion.
With two people in there, the speaker and one other person.
It's like
So
autocratic.
They said it was too dangerous for them to come and vote. Meanwhile, they're going to the grocery store and expecting a grocer to be there and somebody to bag their groceries. They expect the truck drivers to be driving. They expect the UPS guy to show up, the nurses to be
The
there.
unvaccinated healthcare workers.
Right. Nobody was vaccinated at the time, by the way. So anyways, I stood up. I objected. I said, I'm here today to make sure that our republic doesn't die in an empty chamber by unanimous consent.
Is it like a cryptographic vulnerability to vote by just vote digitally and then confirm it with a video chat?
Well, okay, they hadn't. By the way, I think they need a constitutional amendment to do that. What they have come up with since then is a vote by proxy where a human being tells another human being on the floor, vote for me this way, so that they can't be compromised. It's basically human.
So it works like this. I say to my friend Thomas Massie, I'm going to just stay in Georgia this week while Congress is in session. Thomas, will you vote for me? And then Thomas goes, sure, I'll be your proxy. And so I've never done this, by the way, and I will not do it.
And I haven't either.
Yeah, we don't participate. But this is what members of Congress do. Some of them have just hardly ever shown up, literally hardly ever shown up, and someone else just votes for them all the time.
So this is like a representative having a representative. That sounds like they're
Yes.
not doing their job.
They are not doing their job unless you count their job as going to fundraisers. I mean, they would literally attend fundraisers.
That's right.
Instead of coming to vote.
Term limits?
Maskless.
Do you think term limits
Maskless.
will end these nonstop fundraisers?
I don't think so. I don't think. I mean, I've sponsored term limits. I'm for term limits. Let's try it. But
I'm for it too.
The problem is not that the people who've been there a long time sell out. It's the problem is that people get there and sell out on day one. Mm-hmm. And then you have people who announce their retirements, and you would think, well, now they're unchained. They've no obligations, and they'll vote their conscience. No. Once they know that they're no longer going to be there, their voting record doesn't improve. If anything, their attendance goes down.
And then
Yeah,
they get hired
actually,
by Pfizer or something.
The ones that are
Yes.
retiring, I'll give you an example. Adam Kinzinger, we don't know what he is. What is he? He's Nancy
Democrat?
Pelosi's little baby boy. So anyways, Adam Kinzinger, he voted yes with the Democrats Competes Act last week. He was the only Republican to vote yes for it. So he's not running for Congress again. So he is completely sold out and voting whichever way the Democrats are happy with. But back to Thomas's story.
How much of this do you want me to tell?
It's up to you.
Oh my gosh. I had President Trump yelling at me.
Oh my.
He called me up that day for the having the audacity to say that members of Congress should show up and vote.
Yelling at you for what?
I don't know. He was afraid it might slow down the process of getting $2 trillion out the door and $1,200 checks in the mailbox.
Well, let's reference when
think I
this
remember
is.
this.
It was in March of 2020. It was the shutdown. No one knew what COVID was going to do. Everyone was freaking out. They didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So President Trump was pushing through. Thomas Massie was trying to say, no, we have to do this correctly. We still have a constitution. It has not gone away. And I'm proud of him. I totally support him for what he did.
So he said he would, on the phone, he told me he was going to come at me like I'd never seen. Never in your life before have you seen the way in which I will come at you.
Trump
Oh,
said
that's
that.
awesome.
Yeah, he said.
I feel like
He also reminded me, which is true, he's more popular than me in Kentucky. And he said it would be the end of me. And I tried to tell him this was constitutional and we needed to do it this way. And it would still pass anyway because most people were for it. We just couldn't break the Constitution today. And he repeated, I'm coming at you like you've never seen.
Thomas.
Never in your life before have you seen the way in which I will come at you. And then he said that I was I didn't know what that meant. But before I got back to my seat, I found out. He said I was a third-rate grandstander
On Twitter.
He
That was
tweeted,
yeah.
about you.
on
That's the
Twitter.
best.
Yeah,
And you're
I
in
was-
trouble
tweeted
when
you.
that happens.
Yeah, and that I should be thrown out of the GOP and
Gosh.
some other stuff. So when I walked out of the floor, having objected and making everybody show up to work, which they hated, by the way, they still wouldn't take a recorded vote, even though they had a quorum. They would not put their names on that bill. And when I walked out, the press wanted to know what I had to say for myself. That my own president had called me a third-rate grandstander, and I looked at him. I said, I was offended. I'm at least second-rate.
Did you guys see that story? It was several months ago, actually, but video recently got released of planes coming into New York carrying illegal immigrants, undocumented. So they were being shuffled into, I think, Tennessee. And the Biden administration was using military flights, Air Force, to bring, undocumented kids, illegal immigrants across the country. We got video released of one of these moments. So there was a big story about these planes landing in Westchester, New York. Video, body camera footage is released of these federal contractors refusing to show ID, refusing to explain what they're doing. The police who are doing security at the airport are like, what is this? This flight is past curfew. You're not supposed to be landing. Who are these people? Where are their IDs? And then one of the federal contractors said something to the effect of, if the American, help us if the American people find out what's going on, what we're doing. And the cop says, why? And he goes, because the government has betrayed the people. And that's a line from this leaked footage. The New York Post had this. I see stories like that. And it makes, and everything you're telling me right now. And it really feels to me, one of the reasons the media dislikes you guys so much, especially you, Marjorie, is because you are regular people and you've somehow got into the room. And they're holding their wine glasses, pinkies out, and like, oh heavens, like the help is in here. Like, what do we do? Like the plebeians.
I'm pretty sure they said that.
You guys both, you guys both were like basically independently wealthy or had enough that you didn't need to make money out of Congress when you got there. I would imagine. I know you said you had a construction company.
Yes, we have a construction company, but for me, it was more about I've got so disappointed in Republicans not doing what they said they were going to do. And I just got so concerned, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to run for Congress and hold them accountable. And actually, I want to be part of a Republican conference that does the things that we say we're about. And also, I mean, I never apologize for this, and I always say it. I'm very proud. I've always supported President Trump, and I loved his policies. And so when I was running for Congress, he was running for re-election for a second term, and that was something I wanted to be a part of. I really wanted to be a part of a Republican member of Congress. Hopefully finishing out his America First agenda. Now, I don't like the spending. I'm also honest about that. I want to see we should have a balanced budget. Actually, I'd like to see a budget that makes a profit. I'd like to pay off the debt. These are things that I think we should be working towards. But he was the first, president that I believed in, because I felt like every other politician and most of the time they've been selling out our country. They've moved us into this global economy, which is hurting every single American. That's outside of politics. That's selling our country out. And so, it wasn't about money or a career choice at all for me. It was about, I feel like I have to do this, for my kids' future. And I didn't trust anyone else to do it.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.